Hey, I'm Butterfly.
Hey, I'm Firefly.
Have you ever wondered if we aren't being told the truth about everything?
What have we been lied to about? Join us as we have conversations and ask questions about everything. We invite you to keep an open mind and consider the unfathomable.
Let's break the chains that enslave our minds. Come on, let's go down the rabbit hole. Hey, Firefly, what's up?
What's up, Butterfly?
Welcome to Unslave Your Mind.
This is Tinfoil Hats and Rabbit Hole Rants.
So, Firefly, why did we start doing this podcast?
Well, the reason I wanted to start this podcast is because I feel like there's a lot of topics that I wanted to talk about that a lot of people don't really want to talk about, especially in mixed company. And you might get a few people here and there that want to talk about these subjects, but for the most part, there's a lot of stuff out there that I think questions need to be answered, and nobody's really talking about it. So I wanted to bring some of those things to the fore. What was your idea?
Well, all of those reasons. And then also, not only do these topics not get talked about, but I think there are a lot of people who want to talk about these things
Yeah.
and they don't know who to talk about them with,
Yeah,
you
I think
know?
that's exactly right. And I think also there's kind of an element of, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you guys brought that up because I thought I was going crazy thinking this, but nobody was talking about it. So I felt like it was just me.
Right. And it's like you feel so happy when you meet somebody who kind of thinks the same way that, maybe you're not some crazy conspiracy theorist, but maybe you have like
Yeah.
these things that you want to talk about. And it's just cool to find other people that want to talk about them with you.
And then how cool would it be if we're right about stuff and over time it becomes obvious, oh my gosh, you guys were right, and it was just because we started talking about it and having a conversation. So that was pretty much the gist of why I wanted to start this podcast. Let's talk a little bit about how we met because the way we met was pretty cool. Um, let's start by saying like a little bit more about yourself. Tell me, Butterfly, how did you wake up and how did we end up meeting?
Well, so I guess I've always been a curious person, and I think that's kind of where most of us kind of start at. And I've always asked questions, and I've never really been a follower.
Yep.
Um, but I kind of woke up to this whole thing sort of abruptly. And what happened, the thing that sort of woke me up, well, actually, there were two really pivotal things. Probably the first one was my friend sent me this movie to watch, this long, like 7-part series called The Fall of the Cabal.
Of course.
You've seen that.
Yeah.
And it goes into some gnarly stuff.
Totally.
And we'll probably go over some of that in some.
There's a lot to unpack.
There's a lot.
It's like 20 parts. It's like,
yeah.
It's kind of like binge watching a Netflix series. You have to watch it like over the course of 3 days.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. But I think I binge watched like the first 4 episodes or something right away, and I was completely horrified.
It blows your mind.
It blows your mind about all the evils that are happening in the world and the things that these people are willing to do, to have power.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like once you see something that horrific and hear about it, you can't really unsee it or unhear it.
Do you feel like that was your quote unquote red pill moment?
That was definitely, yes, that was the beginning of my red pill moment. And it actually like it gave me nightmares. It was so
Gnarly.
it was gnarly. It really affected me. I had nightmares for weeks after watching
Like Bill Gates going, I'm just going to give you a shot.
Mhm.
Something like that.
Yeah,
that would be a terrifying night.
that was terrible.
Like Bill Gates in a sweater just like showing up in your bedroom.
Nightmare of him in his pink sweater.
He's just like that
Roll
little
up
black
your
kid.
sleeves.
You ever seen that picture of him like holding that little black kid's like mouth open and then just like here,
He's
like
dropping the
dropping
polio.
like pneumonia and polio here. Take polio. It's good for you.
Yeah, so I had nightmares and but I felt like the information was it was like this revelation I just felt everybody needs to know about this. Oh my gosh, I just discovered all these secrets and everybody needs to know.
Yeah.
And so I started sending this out to my close friends. You've got to watch this. You have to watch this. Like these people,
How are they responding? Like, oh God.
they wouldn't watch it.
Hmm.
They did not want to watch it.
I know.
Like they either told me this is too horrible, I can't bear to look at this, or this is like I can't go there, I can't. So in other words, they didn't really want to know or hear about these things that could be happening. They just wanted to close their eyes and pretend they're not happening.
And I think that was pretty much the gist of The Matrix. I know you
Yeah.
haven't seen The Matrix, which is awesome. I
I
think it's awesome because
yeah,
too many people use the Matrix analogy, but what you're talking about is the perfect Matrix analogy.
it's totally
Some people prefer the blue pill. Like there's a character called Cypher, and he's like taking a bite of steak, and he's like, I know this is fake, but ignorance is bliss. And I think a
yeah,
lot of people really have that. They don't want to know the truth because that's going to jolt them out of their little comfort zone with their
right.
Tesla and their nice little gated community that they live in and their kids' tuition. It's like, but wait a second, what if it's all predicated on lies? They're like, I don't want to know.
They don't want to know.
Yeah.
They'd rather just close their eyes and pretend it's not happening than actually like consider the possibility that these evil things are happening and try to learn more about it. But I became like I wanted to know everything at that point. I was like, now I need to know more. But you know what
That's interesting.
the real red pill moment for me was?
COVID.
Well, that all happened when COVID was already starting at that point when I saw this
The
movie.
fall of the cabal. What was that like?
Yeah,
Early 2020, like
yeah.
right when COVID had
It
just
was
hit,
it
right?
was right, it was happening. And I was starting to have some serious questions about this whole COVID thing. Like I didn't understand why the people were insisting on wearing masks and like you could go into a restaurant and take it off and none of it really made sense, but the final like nail in the coffin was the George Floyd incident.
Yeah, all the lies.
So when I saw that, the thing that just made me realize that the news is not telling us the truth,
Yeah.
because I watched what they were showing on like MSNBC.
Yes.
I watched what they were showing and talking about, and then I saw the whole like 18-minute live like video that somebody put out on the internet
Yeah.
showing the entire thing actually took place. It wasn't edited down, to the
Where he's like acting like an infant for like an hour and a half.
yeah, where he was completely like wasted out of his mind.
Jeffrey, don't put me in the back seat.
Yeah, and
It's
the
like
guy, the cop didn't even have
handling him with kid gloves the
Yeah,
whole time.
right. He didn't even have his knee on him, and
No.
and he was like, "I can't breathe."
And it came out in the wash that was actually textbook,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So when I saw that, I sort of had like I don't know, sort of this existential um mini little
Rage.
breakdown.
Yeah.
I was so upset.
Yeah.
Like
It gets you enraged.
it made me really mad, and it was really like upsetting to me to think that like Al Roker had been lying to me all these years on
He's such an adorable, charming little man.
you know
I know.
so I realized all my news people that I had been watching, my trusty news people that I got all my news from daily, were not telling me the whole story.
Yeah.
And once you realize that you're
It's
not
really devastating.
it's devastating because you realize, wow,
What a betrayal.
a
These people
betrayal.
who
Yes.
I loved
Mhm.
and that I respected were just completely sold out and just telling me a bunch of lies because they're beholden to some big puppet
Right.
masters.
They're telling
Now,
me bits and pieces.
tell me a little
Edit.
bit more because it was really interesting how you and I met.
Mhm.
So tell me a little bit about how you and I finally met.
So
Because that was a little bit after you watched The Fall of the Cabal. I
yeah,
think I met you maybe in October of 2020, around then.
yeah, probably around then. So, I just went months and months feeling like I didn't really know anybody who thought this way. Maybe one or two people, the friend that sent me the movie.
Yeah.
And then I started sort of meeting some people um, through like Signal chat groups and stuff. And I think that's how you and I connected maybe, and
I
you
don't
were
think I ever used Signal, but I had a lot of people down there. So just to kind of put it in context, in August of 2020, I watched a video on the Alex Jones show, and it was General Flynn.
mm,
And I remember General Flynn, and whether or not Alex Jones is controlled opposition or General Flynn is, I think he made a good point. He was kind of saying along the lines of, we can't just sit here and just put everything on Donald Trump to solve all the problems. You have to get out in your communities and you have to start raising awareness of these issues. And I felt like that really struck me. So I went and I started Red Pill Corner. And that was when, back in August of 2020, I started standing on the corner. I was by myself at first, just with a sign saying COVID is a hoax. And then I was doing it every Sunday for a few weeks, and you were one of the first people to come down
oh,
and
was
protest with me.
I was one of the first?
You were, yeah, because it was early going. I
Okay.
mean, because when you came down, remember, um, you had the idea to have several signs so
Right.
that everybody got kind of a battery of signs that they drove past that was all COVID messaging, so they could kind of get a takeaway when they're making a right turn at the Bank of America there. And when
Yeah.
you came down there, it was still in its infancy. I don't think we'd have been doing it for maybe a couple of months, because I think it was in October or something when you came down.
Yeah.
So that was when we met. And tell me a little bit about, so now you're going to Red Pill Corner, and now you've watched the Cabal. Tell me about some of your takeaways from the COVID hoax, and like, what were some of the key things that you learned about the lies and the deception?
Well, what I learned was that you can't trust the healthcare system. You can't,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of the doctors, in fact, most of the doctors are just as brainwashed as everybody else,
Isn't
which
that
is
crazy?
super scary,
And how about the doctors getting paid money to diagnose someone with COVID that doesn't have COVID?
Right,
And then if you get them to take the shot, you get more money.
right.
And if they die of COVID, you get more money. If you put them on a ventilator. So these doctors are just like, dude, I need to just cash in on this COVID thing.
Hmm. And even if, what I started wondering is like, are all these doctors super evil? And I pictured my family doctor. Is he this evil man that just wants money? And I think like maybe, some of them are, but I think a lot of them are just absolutely so brainwashed and indoctrinated that, you know, they're just following orders, you
That's
know?
true. And I think there's also an element of them saying, I don't want to lose my license. Because
Yeah,
look at some of the doctors that came out and said COVID was a hoax. They went and said, no, you don't get to practice medicine anymore, and started coming after them and destroying their lives and destroying, some of them like had like threats to their
right.
family.
Yeah.
So I can see some people just taking the cowardly way out and just saying, hey, go along to get along.
Exactly. Which is really sad and scary too, because I think what the whole COVID thing really showed us is that most people won't stand up for what they believe in.
Yeah.
Most people will just back down and just go along with the crowd. I mean, the vast majority of people are followers. So they just followed what the mainstream media was telling them anyway, which was, oh, this is killing everybody and you better
Yeah.
go get your shot and wear your mask. And, but then the other people, I think actually worse than people who are so confused or scared and they just went along. I think probably the worst set of people are the ones who knew that it was wrong and they went along with it anyway
Yeah.
because they wanted to keep their job or they wanted to go on a cruise or something like that.
I think you hit the nail on the head. And I think what allowed the whole phenomena of COVID
Perpetuate.
to manifest is crass materialism.
Oh
I
yeah.
think that in the United States, I've watched, because I'm 50 now, and I've watched as crass materialism when we were kids was kind of frowned upon. It, like,
Hmm.
to just be a total like money worshiper was kind of like ugh. But
Mhm.
now to just be a total money worshiper is completely fine. And
It's
it's even
okay.
it's even like you're extolled in our society for that. And I think because people are so preoccupied with their financial wherewithal, all you got to do is say, hey, if you don't take the shot, you're going to get fired. People are like, oh, whatever. I don't care what's in it. Just go ahead and shoot me up
Right.
as long as I get to keep my financial wherewithal. And I think that was one of the things that really, because COVID wouldn't have been allowed if people stood up for what was right.
Exactly. I mean, the whole thing would have ended if more people, a lot of the people who knew it was wrong or who knew it was possibly dangerous, if they would have just stood up and said no, like look at all the doctors and nurses and, firemen, policemen, all those people that knew that it was wrong and didn't want to do it. If they would have just from the beginning said no and all stood together and said no, the whole house of cards would have fallen down.
And to
Everything.
this day, if everybody would just come and stand up for what's right and not just go along to get along, we would be able to get rid of this cabal
Yeah.
because that's a small number of people. We outnumber them,
Mhm.
but they have sway over us. And it's because it's all run by like Larry Fink, who runs BlackRock. And remember, he came out with that statement recently and he was like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and drive behavior with our financial instruments. And that's they wouldn't be able to drive behavior with financial stuff if people weren't terrified of their financial status being jeopardized. And I think a lot of that goes into like social media too. And it's like, oh, my profile is completely rounded out. We have our vacation pictures on there and people can see how nice my house is. And people are so like self satisfied with that type of outward appearance, just meeting that criteria, that they don't really care about
No.
what's right,
No.
you know?
And they don't see the big picture. They think like, oh, I'll just go ahead and get this shot so I can keep my job, or go on that cruise.
Yeah.
And they don't even see like, 2 weeks or 2 months down the road, which would be like, okay, how are you going to keep that job if you're having a stroke or you're, having
That's right.
myocarditis and heart problems on the cruise because you took that shot, or how about 2 years down the road when you have health problems or problems in our whole world because everybody went along with these things. I mean, it just takes people to
I mean,
stand up.
why don't people see the slippery slope?
Yeah,
If they tell you you have to take this injection or you don't get to have a job or fly on an airplane, then what's going to be the next thing that they make you do? And
exactly.
people don't think about those hypothetical scenarios down the line. They're just, I mean, a lot of the people in the town that we live in, they were happy to go along with it. Did
Hmm.
you see some of the people? Like if you go in Trader Joe's, they were like foaming at the mouth
Oh
if you
yeah.
went out there. If you went in there without a mask, they were like, "You're not wearing a mask."
Oh,
Oh,
there's
I would piss them off so bad too. Like they'd come up and they'd be like, "You have to put a mask on, sir," and I'd be like, "Oh, no, that's okay. I'm not in Nicole. Thank you, though." And they would like freak out, like follow me around the store, all huffing and puffing.
they were total mass Nazis. I
Oh
mean,
my
there's
god!
there's a lady that still shoots daggers my way for because I wouldn't wear a mask, and
How
she
dare you?
she was so horrified that I would step foot in there without a mask. She actually walked to. She was one of the checkers, and she actually like closed her lane when I was like trying to go and pay for my stuff
Yeah,
because she didn't want to deal with
and you know
me.
what? That brings up a good point. That COVID, in my opinion, one of the key takeaways was it was a psychological experiment
It
on
totally
on
was.
the population.
Yeah.
And you can tell the masks don't do anything to protect you. Comprehensive studies in several countries have come out saying masks don't prevent you from contracting a virus or spreading a virus.
Hmm.
It's a complete behavioral control thing.
Hmm.
And then you had this weird phenomena of if you stand 6 feet away, you're fine.
Right.
So the virus only goes 5 feet, 11 inches, and then it stops right there abruptly,
Yeah.
and you're fine.
Yeah. Or it doesn't go up above the little plastic barrier in
Thank
front of the cashier
Thank
or
goodness they
below.
had a piece of
Yeah.
plexiglass there
It
that kept me safe.
it kept it, yeah, it doesn't go beside it, up above it, or below it.
I remember I was walking on the beach and you weren't allowed to go walk on the sand you had to stay on the bike path. And I remember thinking, well, thank goodness I'm here safe on the bike path because out there on the beach,
Could be dangerous.
I could catch COVID
Right.
and that could kill me immediately.
Well, it was like at the restaurants where, you can go out to eat
Mm-hmm.
and you can like sit down and eat your food.
Take your mask off sitting down in
Yeah,
the booth,
it's
but while
okay.
you're standing up, you're contagious.
Yeah. Oh, I almost got arrested at the movie theater once because they were, they were,
Almost arrested.
oh gosh, they were insisting
They were
that,
adamant.
yeah,
You
and
put your mask
put
on
your
to watch
mask
this film.
and I got in line with my family to get some popcorn and some stuff. And the guy was like, he was basically like sweating profusely and almost dropping his little walkie-talkie. And he was like shaking, trying to get on his.
Oh my God,
on
that
his
was another thing.
walkie-talkie.
That was another thing that COVID brought up was like, how many little tyrants did it bear? You know,
Total tyrants. Yeah.
like, oh my God, these people love telling you what you can do.
Yeah.
And they love kicking you out of establishments.
He
They
was going to
love
report
that.
me right away. And
You know what's their little power? It's like, well, all I do is work at a movie theater and I'm broke and I don't get laid, but I get to tell you what to do. And that's
exactly.
my life.
Yeah. So I said, I'm going to sit in a crowded movie theater next to strangers who are all not wearing their mask while they're eating their popcorn, but I can't get in line to get my popcorn without a mask.
You know what
How
was
does this
even,
make sense?
you know what was an even more absurd, like, cult behavior was airline travel during COVID.
Oh yeah.
Because it
You
was
can
like,
take
keep your mask on all through the whole gates. And then, but then when you go on the plane, you may take your mask off to eat.
to eat your
And it was
peanuts.
like, okay, but wait a second, we're in a tube now. And we're in a very like kind of vacuum
Recycled air.
environment, but now I can take my mask off to eat my peanuts, but then only then put it right back on. But wait, wasn't that couple of seconds of exposure enough to kill me?
No, it wasn't because you were eating your peanuts at that time. So it was
See,
okay.
and that's the thing. COVID had like political bent. Like it knew when to infect and when to not.
It did.
If you were following the appropriate rules. See, all of this made me realize this is a psychological experiment.
Exactly. And it's like it made it so obvious to me that some of the people were so willing to go along with that. And they would get so outraged at the people like us who saw right through it, and the more crazy kooky stuff like that I saw, the more crazy it made me. I was like, this is just unreal, like these people are going along with this stuff and actually believing it.
It was what it made me was disgusted with the human race because I was like, nobody stands up for what's right anymore. Right. Everybody is just so preoccupied with, wait, my kid's college tuition and whatever their little statuses, and nobody's willing to stand up for what's right. No. Remember, I was telling you about the Milgram experiment in Stanford back in like 1958 or something like that?
Is that the one where the so-called doctor came in and told the other guy to give the electric shocks?
That's right.
Yeah, let's.
And what was the key takeaway there? So in the Milgram experiment, they have the subject who doesn't know what's going on is being asked to administer electric shock to one of the participants in the study. And then the other participant in the study is somebody standing there with like an official looking medical garb on, like, I don't know, one of those coats that doctors wear.
A white doctor's coat.
A white doctor's coat, right? So the whole predicate of the study was that people will do anything if they're told by an authority figure. Mm-hmm. So who became that authority figure in the COVID was Dr. Deborah Birx and Dr. Fauci. And their prescriptions and their new guidelines were law. They were canon.
Well, remember he said, I am science.
I am science. How dare you ever
question.
So in the Milgram experiment, what they would have was they would have the doctor in the lab coat saying, administer more electric shock to this person. And of course, the person receiving the electric shock was a paid actor. They weren't actually being electrocuted, but they knew how much electrical shock would actually kill somebody. And they noticed that a full 75% of people would administer a fatal dose of electricity to somebody just solely based on the fact that an authority figure told them to do it, never asking what did this person do, why am I electrocuting this person, like, oh well, this is, I'm just following the rules, I'm doing what I'm told. And I think that was one of the key things that came out of COVID was people will do what they're told, like the doctors, or like how many cops too.
Right.
Cops went along with it.
Yeah.
You know, like, did you ever see that video of that girl in Australia where this huge cop is like strangling a 16-year-old girl
Yeah.
because she was like, I don't want to wear my mask, and he's like, you will wear your mask or I'll choke you to death.
Yeah.
Like gnarly.
It was gnarly. It was just like reminiscent of the Nazi era with the, which we'll probably talk about.
Well, we'll have to
that.
unpack the Nazi thing because I mean, I'm wondering about. Look, if this government and this establishment, let's call it, was able to do something as wicked and horrific as COVID, could they have lied to us about the Nazis? Could they have lied to us about all kinds of historical facts? I mean,
Well, you know what?
that was kind of the red pill that I started to have is holy shit, I've been lied to my whole life. And what is real? And we were talking about that a little bit earlier. Like when you're trying to deduce, like, does a virus exist?
Mm-hmm.
Are germs real? Like you have to question everything now.
Well, I think that brings up a really good point because when I realized that, all of these lies were happening, I mean, I was just living a normal life. I was just a normal person before, not really super political or anything like that. Um, and after realizing, like, they're lying about this and that, it makes you start to wonder, okay, well, what else are they lying about? I mean, I start out just like this regular person living my life, and now here I am trying to save the world.
And look at here it is 5 years later.
Here it is
and
5 years later.
Are rabbit hole rants and tinfoil hats.
Yeah,
and why not? Because
I mean, I'm just sitting here trying to save the world in this flat Earth. Okay,
and
I mean,
well, that's right.
That's how.
And how do we not know? I mean, now everything coming out with NASA being a bunch of crap and the moon landing. I mean, it really gets you wondering, like, what is real? This is the way I look at it. Look, we're treated like mushrooms. We're kept in the dark and fed a bunch of shit. So if we're kept in the dark and fed a bunch of shit, then all we can really do is try to read the tea leaves based on the information that we have at hand.
Right.
And so that's what I think the gist of this show has been about for you and I, because you and I kind of have we have something in common. We're leaders. We're not leaders like ambitiously, like on LinkedIn, like, oh, I'm an influencer. But we're leaders in that we don't just eat what we're fed. And I'm not going to just drink the Kool-Aid and join a cult.
Yeah, we're not just going to follow whatever the TV tells us to do. I mean, there is no job and there is no cruise or vacation that I would go on that would be more important to me than my life or my health.
Yeah. And I think you and I have both agreed that even if you take away my money and my ability to do my job or have a job, I don't care. I'm not going to just comply. So, kind of like, and we can talk about this in future episodes, if they put in the social credit system and the, digital currency, and now you just get your ability to buy food turned off for saying the wrong thing, even if that's the case, I think that's where you and I kind of have the similar mentality is even if you threaten me with not even being able to buy food, I'm still not going to just comply.
Right. Exactly.
I'm going to question and I'm going to stand up for what I believe is right.
And I think that's, why probably one of the reasons why we want to talk about this with people too. And maybe, hopefully maybe some people will hear this kind of thing and actually start to wake up like we did and realize how important it is to stand up for what's right. Because as more and more people comply and go along with these things, more and more freedoms are going to be taken away.
And the next COVID thing is coming. Mm-hmm. It's whether it's going to be like Project Bluebeam, like the alien invasion, and you had better just get in your house and obey because aliens are attacking or whatever. Yeah. They're trying to get us to become slaves. That's what's going on. I think we both agree with that. That was a great intro. I think this was a great first podcast, and I'm so excited. What are we going to talk about
Next time,
next
our
time,
next rabbit hole.
Butterfly? Yeah.
Well, I think a really good follow up to this would be to talk about who are they?
Who are
Who
they?
are they?
I think that's good. Yeah, there's a
Right?
lot to unpack there, and a lot of it will be speculation, but
Yeah.
that's kind of what we'll do. We'll just kind of ask questions. What do you think about this, and what do you think about that?
Yeah. We don't have all the answers or
Obviously.
even like a few of them because I think the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know, but I think what we do.
How can we know? I mean, we're so lied to by authority
Mhm.
that, I mean, how can we know?
We can't. All we can do is question. And the way I see it is when something doesn't seem right, it's
It's
probably
not.
not. When something doesn't make sense, that's when I start asking questions. That's why I started questioning all of that because it just didn't make sense. So,
I always just kind of trust my gut. And I give it the gut test.
mhm.
If my gut just kind of goes, what a lot of it is, I think for me is I dress down people within a couple of seconds. And if somebody seems like they're just completely full of shit, I can usually tell really quick.
Mhm.
And I might not know what the truth is, but I know that that person's full of shit. So good.
Okay,
So then, our next podcast, we're gonna go down the rabbit hole of who is they. I think that's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Butterfly. It was great talking to
Thank
you
you,
again.
Firefly. It was fun.
Okay. All right. We'll talk soon.